where you want it.
Bay 12, please.
Hello there, Transformers fans, and welcome back to another Bay 12 video review. And today we are reviewing the new Studio Series Gamer Edition #1, Bumblebee. Now, I think I mentioned this in the Optimus video. Honestly, I think Optimus should have been #1, not Bumblebee. I do like that Bumblebee is #1. I mean, in place of #1, it had to go to either Optimus or Bumblebee personally. And this is an awesome, awesome Bumblebee figure. Now, yeah, there are some things Hasbro could have done a little bit better on, but overall, I think this is a very great figure, and this might just be my favorite Bumblebee figure. But more on that when we get to it. So, here he is in the packaging. He's in that new Studio Series Gamer Edition packaging, so you got an awesome image of War/Fall of Cybertron Bumblebee there. There's Bumblebee right there in the window. On this side, you've got some art with the number and the D-pad. On this side, you've got more full art of Bumblebee, and then, of course, there's the D-pad on the backdrop. And on the back, you've got some images of the figure, and that's pretty much it for the packaging. And real quick before we do our close-up, you can of course display your Studio Series figure on the provided Studio Series diorama backdrop. I'm not 100% sure where this backdrop is. I want to say it's somewhere in K-On!, but I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely not Soundwave's interrogation room. And I did have to double check on that one. It's not Soundwave's interrogation room. I do like, however, if you look really closely, right here on the backdrop is one of the health pack crates that you can see and use in game. So that's really cool that that's in the backdrop. And here he is right out of the packaging. And yeah, he looks really awesome. I'm not as crazy about how the chest turned out in his robot mode as on the original figure. There are definitely some aspects about this version that I like more than the original release, and there's aspects of the original release that I like more than this version, of course. And there was definitely a decent amount of give and take between the two character designs. Now, the original figure is based a little bit more on concept art than in-game character model. Now, there are some bits of the original figure that are more screen accurate to the game than there are bits on this, and vice versa. For example, the forearm section of Bumblebee on this version is much more game accurate than the forearm section on the original release. The chest section is a little bit more game accurate on this one than on this one, but I like how the chest section on this one is a little bit more compact than just the front of the car sitting on his chest on this one. This one just makes him look a little bit more fat, and I've seen some other reviewers say that same comment, that he kind of looks like he's got a gut more than a chest. But depending on how you pose him definitely affects how that perception looks on this figure, I think. The shoulders look very good. Those are pretty accurate on both versions. His backpack is nice and smaller on this version than on this version, so I do like that here. Neither of them are particularly game accurate because he's supposed to have like mechanical bits and an Autobot symbol on his back and made out of those bits, and neither of those have that, so there is that. One of the biggest issues I have with the new version is they didn't paint the rear windshield at all. That is easily my biggest complaint about this figure right here. Is this whole section is just solid bare plastic, and that's a real shame. I wish that, you know, they at least painted it in. This is actually translucent plastic. This is actually supposed to be a window on this toy, and yeah, that is my biggest complaint, is there's just no paint whatsoever right there. I don't like that at all. The legs on this one, I would say, are a little bit more screen accurate than the legs on this one. There are some detail in the feet that are a little bit more screen accurate than the feet on this one, but the shin section, the way the wheels are visible. It's definitely more screen accurate on this version than this version. However, overall, I like the size of this one more, especially in comparison to some of the other War/Fall of Cybertron figures I have. And I definitely like the color of plastic choice, that more golden color that they went with on this one than on this one. The bright yellow just isn't quite right, but the color on this one is definitely more game accurate across both games than this one is, in my opinion. I will say though, even though it's not game accurate, one of the features I love about this figure that the new one doesn't have is the fold-out wrist blades. No, he does not have fold-out wrist blades in the game. I know it seems like he does because the movement in the game is so quick, but the little Energon sword that this Bumblebee comes with, which is unfortunately not painted even a little bit, is the actual in-game melee weapon that Bumblebee uses. If you look very closely, I know it's a very quick motion, and the way he swings his arm forward almost seems as though it's a wrist blade. It is not a wrist blade in the game. This is actually a more accurate sword that he uses in-game, and Sideswipes is also very similar to this one, by the way, than the wrist blades. Don't get me wrong. I like this more than I like this. But when it comes to game accuracy and they're trying to make more accurate versions of the in-game character models, unfortunately, as cool as this feature is, it's not game accurate. He does not have these wrist blades in the game. He has this. So there's that. Other than that, he looks very, very cool. This is a very awesome Bumblebee figure. And again, might just be my #1 favorite figure because I've probably said this before, but the War/Fall of Cybertron video games is my absolute #1 favorite thing in Transformers. When it comes to a Transformers universe, that's it. That's #1. The very tippy top for me. It beats out all the comic book universes, which those are very good too. It beats out every show, every movieverse, G1 period. This is my #1 favorite Transformers universe, is the War and Fall of Cybertron universe. They just did so many things right. The overall tone, artistic direction, the design of the characters, the portrayal of the characters have not been as good as have been portrayed in these games, in my opinion, once again. This figure is fully articulated. Head is on a ball joint. You can go forward and back. Fully articulated shoulders in and out. You can even articulate these if you want to, but that's due to transformation. Upper bicep, single jointed elbows, nothing at the wrists. The wrists can fold in due to transformation, but there's no swivel joint or ball joint or anything like that. You can, of course, unpeg his forearm from his elbow so that you can put on any of the swappable weapons, and you can put on Optimus's ion blaster, you can put on the Nucleon assault rifle that comes with barricade, or you can put his Energon blaster pistol, which is the default weapon that you use in-game for Bumblebee in War for Cybertron. So this is the one he comes equipped with in-game. Or you can switch to the plasma cannon, which is the weapon that Bumblebee has in the cutscenes. It's interesting. In the trailer and the cutscenes in the game, he's using the plasma cannon, which is this cool little charge weapon that not only Bumblebee uses in the cutscenes, but the Cloaker characters use on both Autobots and Decepticon sides. It's a weapon you can pick up with pretty much any character. Not my favorite. It's one of those charge and release type weapons, which it's not a bad weapon, it's just not my favorite. Usually I like to use the Nucleon charge rifle and the thermo rocket launcher personally. That's my normal favorite combo if I'm not playing as Optimus or Megatron, of course. And he can, of course, hold his sword in either hand. So you can have him dual wield weapons. You can have his sword in one hand and either of his other weapons as his main weapon attachment. And another awesome game accuracy is you can only have one blast weapon equipped at a time, and it's only on the right arm. Now, in Fall of Cybertron, they switch it to where you could actually switch the weapons between your right or left hand, which offered different perspectives and better angles for different cover. But in War for Cybertron, they hadn't quite gotten to that feature yet, so it was right arm only. So there you go. Also, real quick, before we get to transformation for comparison, we already did the original War for Cybertron Bumblebee action figure, but here he is next to the original Cybertronian Bumblebee, Origins Bumblebee from the very first episode of the Transformers. You can see them side by side. And here he is next to my other favorite Cybertronian Bumblebee, B-127 from the Bumblebee movie. So you can see them side by side. Transformation is pretty cool and very simple. We're going to start by folding in his fists here, and then we're going to rotate his wheels forward on those arms. So do that, rotate that forward. Next, we're going to pull up on this chest section, pull up on this backpack section here, and we're going to lift up his whole chest area. We're going to fold down, or rather up, this upper windshield section of the vehicle mode, so that's nice and done. Rotate those legs all the way around in a full 360, and then what you want to do is, before you try to put the legs away, you're going to want to bring that waist and fold it as far back as you can go. You're going to want to lift that upper car section a little bit, because if you don't do that, things are not going to line up properly in the back, and you're going to have a hard time closing the trunk, basically. Next, we're going to come back to the front, pull out on these fender sections, articulate his shoulders up, bring that into the side so you'll see it'll just kind of fill in that gap and complete that pattern that's going in right there. Rotate that arm and stick that arm over the fender, so the outer part with the wheel is going to go on the outside of the fender, and the inner part of the forearm is going to go on the underside of the fender. So you want to make sure that the middle fender, or middle section of the fender, is right in between those two sections, and it'll line up very nicely for you. So do the same thing over here. We're going to bring that out, bring that in, rotate at that elbow joint, make sure that fender is out all the way, and then just push that in, and there you go. We pretty much have the front of the car all the way done. Next, we're going to come over here to the legs. Untab that leg from the side of the knee right there, bring it up like so. There's a couple of rectangular pegs right here. Those are going to tab into the under part of the shoulder and that middle section bit of the car there. And there you go, get that all nice and lined up like so, and that'll fill in that section. Next, you're going to come over here to this foot, rotate that in, rotate that section out, and rotate the foot in like so. Then we're going to do the same thing over here. Untab that section, bring it over, bring that up, tab that in like so, and then bring that in, rotate that up, and all that's left to do now is to close the trunk. And like I said, if you put the hips in correctly, it'll line up properly. You'll be able to close the trunk just fine, and it looks very good. Overall, his vehicle mode looks fantastic, except for the fact that his rear windshield is not painted at all. Now, I said this with the Optimus. As frustrating as that is, unfortunately, one, I don't typically display my figures in vehicle mode, and two, I don't display my figures backwards. So, as much as I am frustrated with that, at the same time, it's not a make or break because I don't display my figures sitting on the shelf like that. But at the same time, you couldn't have just put some black paint on there. I mean, I would have complained if they had put the black paint on there and not do the red little Energon paneling as well, but doing nothing is not okay. And I expect the upcoming Cliff Jumper figure that was just very recently announced to have the same problem. Something tells me it just will. Now, you can store all of his weapons on his vehicle mode. His plasma cannon just pegs up top, so you got that sitting there at the top, which is very nice. His sword, you can put his sword and his Energon blaster in either spot. They have the same size rectangular peg, and Those just store on the back of the vehicle, and there you go. And his wheels do roll, which is very nice. Overall, this is a very awesome alt mode, and I love it. Real quick for comparison, here he is next to the original War for Cybertron Bumblebee figure in their respective car modes. Again, I love them both very much. Now, when it comes to vehicle mode, detail-wise, this one wins by a landslide because luckily the vehicle mode was actually very game accurate. And while this one is also very game accurate too, as far as overall mold and design, it's missing a lot of details. Like that right there. Other than that, and some other paint details that this one just beats over this one. When it comes to vehicle mode, unfortunately, I think this one is the clear winner over this one. But in robot mode, I prefer this one personally. But that's just my personal preference. And again, I like the overall shade of yellow that this one is over this one, just by a little bit more. Next, here he is with Origins Bumblebee, so you can see them side by side. And as much as I love Origins Bumblebee and as much as I love Generation 1, I've never really been particularly fond of this Cybertronian alt mode. At least not next to his other Cybertronian alt modes like this one, and then of course the one from the Bumblebee movie. This is still a very cool design, and it has a special place in my heart as being the original Bumblebee design. However, I've just never been a big fan of his saucer car mode personally. And here he is next to my next favorite Cybertronian Bumblebee. Probably my next favorite Bumblebee design in general because I really love the Cybertronian B127 design. Almost as much as I love this one. I like how this one's a little bit more sleek, but at the same time, I love the more bug shape of this one, which is part of why I love this so much. Just the Cybertronian translation of the Volkswagen Bug just came across so well in War for Cybertron. And I like that they did this little Cybertronian car in the Bumblebee movie. And again, I love this design very much. However, this still remains to be my most #1 favorite Bumblebee design of all time. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's review featuring the new Transformers Studio Series Gamer Edition #1 War for Cybertron Bumblebee. What do you think of the new Gamer series? Is this a series that you're really excited for? Are there other characters from the various Transformers games that just have your mind racing as, oh, I really hope they do this one or this one or this one? Well, there's plenty of Transformer characters from various Transformers video games that have never seen the light of day and have never had an action figure. So Hasbro has a lot of mileage out of the Gamer Edition, in my opinion. I mean, there's characters from not only the War and Fall of Cybertron series, but the live-action video game series that never got figures. Not very many from those, mind you, but there still are some. There are characters from the old Transformers Armada video game, like the Decepticlones. There's Viacons from the Transformers Prime video game. There's various DS video game characters that don't have figures, and more. So drop down in the comments a character from any of the Transformers video games you hope to see in the future. And stay tuned for more Gamer Edition reviews. Check out some of our other content here on Bay 12 because we do a lot more than just Transformers here. And like and subscribe, follow us on social media. If you're looking for Transformers figures, come by our shop. It's inside Order 66 Multiverse, and the shop's at Willow Bend Mall in Plano, Texas. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you another time. Transform and roll out.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.